Oh yes, legends, how's everybody doing? Let's analyze the situation here for the price of Bitcoin, getting a little bit of a dumpy action here just in the last couple of hours. Let's analyze the local situation here for the price of Bitcoin. Make sure to destroy that like button, legends, on your way in. I'll be analyzing the situation. We're still in the range, pretty boring. Got a little bit of a dip today. All right, we did have some news throughout the US. GDP growth slightly lower than expected. And we had some other interesting news, bringing a little bit of volatility. We're getting a little bit of a dump inside of the range, okay? Now, of course, we need to talk about the technical analysis, right? Technical analysis here that we have formed throughout the last few days, throughout the last 1 to 2 weeks. Can we still manage and claim the highs? You know, that's the overall idea still, right? Now we're getting a little bit of this scary dump. We're going to focus on this local area, guys, because yesterday, you know, we mentioned how the price could develop, right? How can the price develop here in the next coming hours? So far, on yesterday's stream, we were trading around about this area. And we realized that a drop, a pump, and then another drop to claim the lows was a scenario. This is how the price can move. Not sure if it is going to move like this, but if it does, we have a potential WXY and a flat in your Y. However, this pump, so we got the drop out of the triangle, right? The drop out of the triangle happened. Not a major drop, okay? Did get a drop. We did actually bounce exactly at the point of control from this range, right? So we did have that high volume node right over here, okay? If we don't count the price action from yesterday, basically this consolidation, we did get the drop and we did bounce, right? From that point of control. So let's just zoom in here on the price action. Let's see if the fixed volume profile pops out here. So we got the bounce at the point of control, right? From this consolidation. So we formed the triangle. We got the breakout. It would have been nice for this pump to actually claim the highs and then get the drop. But the overall idea yesterday is get the drop, get a pump, and then get another drop down. And then, you know, the low could be in, right? The low could be in here before we actually start recovering. Right, this is basically a projection that was mentioned yesterday, right? Form a flat structure, okay? Get the breakdown, bounce from the point of control of this consolidation of the last few days, get a pump to possibly reclaim the highs. Now, we did not reclaim the highs. Is it enough for a flat, right? Or is it a zigzag? And, you know, that's the point that I want to talk about today. But you know, getting this kind of volatility still in the range to possibly form your last wave before we get the pumpy action to finally to hit the highs, right? It's been very much a boring range here. But we'll explain in detail why there is still high probability in claiming those highs, even though we got this little dip purely based on news. Maybe as the news was launched today, we got that dip, right? So is the news, right, in confluence, right, with the technical analysis, right? This is the beauty of technical analysis, of course, when you actually can realize how the price can move in the next, you know, 24 hours, 48 hours. This is what we like to do, right? How can the price move, right, between today and tomorrow, right? So we basically got the breakdown of the triangle. We bounced at the point of control. We did not reclaim the highs, so we can't say we predicted every single movement, right? We can't say that. You know, a lot of the time we don't. But overall understanding how the price can develop, right? So we came down, value area low. We came down to the $93,000, right? Slightly below even, right? We actually dipped here. Value area low could be the zone where we could actually find some support, right? Value area low of the zone, just about to hit these lows. This is the zone where you wanted the price after this dip down, right, to actually start recovering and see some signs of strength, so we can be confident that, yeah, maybe this is the low right now and we're heading up to the highs, right? That's the main idea. The main idea here is to see if the movement has finished. Apparently, we do have some other scenarios, okay, that I want to discuss, and it's purely based on this movement right over here, okay, that we need to consider also part of a wave, all right? And you know what this, this zone reminds me very much of this zone. It's not exactly the same, but here we also formed a complex WXY sideways momentum, right? Finally breaking up. It reminds me, these are complex sideways movements, which you trying to figure out when it's going to end, right? That's what we try and do, right? Maybe this could be the end. Maybe it's not the end. Of course, if the price, dumps down and gets to $88,000, then obviously, I would have to come up and say, wow, I was really not expecting that. So you can expect the unexpected, but for the moment, the analysis does provide us that this is a sideways corrective move, and that it's still at some point, we should be hitting those highs. Now the main question is, can it go lower? And if we count this range, it can actually go a little bit lower. We'll be explaining a few scenarios, but this could be the low as well, okay? It's important to hold this zone, right? This is why the title, right? It has a reason, right? We need to hold value area low, and we need to hold the lows of this region, okay, to actually count this as a sideways WXY to finally get that leg to the upside. Because, in a sideways correction, you don't get a deep, right, zigzag, right, kind of move WXY. It needs to be sideways, and there are some limits on the sideways corrective move, which we need to discuss here on the live stream. So for the moment, yeah, this definitely has a chance to be the low. All right. So, I mean, we'll be discussing a few scenarios. That dump doesn't looks a bit scary, right? When you get that dump, which is just a dump of $2,000, right? But I mean, if you're looking at the lower time frame, it does look pretty scary, right? This is it. We're going to go lower, right? This is the dump that is going to break down, right? Bart-Simpson pattern. And this is it, right? We're going down, right? This kind of candlestick gives you that impression, right? It gives you the impression of, whoops, this is it. We're going lower. But this is the zone that, really kind of needs to hold, right? And this dump was an expected possible projection based on yesterday's analysis, right? When we're doing all of this drawing and all of these waves, sometimes, for people that don't have the knowledge, right, and don't understand, they haven't done their homework, they're going to see a bunch of drawing and they won't understand it, and they'll say, hey, come on, stop trying to speculate 3 waves in advance, because eventually you're just playing around. Well, no, these are studied, projected moves from chart analysis, right, from many assets throughout over 100 years. So you understand that it is a possibility that the price can move like this. And now obviously the question is, okay, it moved similar as how you said yesterday. Could this be the low? We'll be discussing the technical analysis, mainly Elliott wave theory throughout this zone, trying to understand the corrective structure, trying to understand the sideways momentum. And is there a chance to actually break down with power? Which, I am struggling to find the analysis to really say, can we break down? Well, eventually we can break down, right? You can't say it's impossible. You can say it's lower probability than actually, still maintaining the range and finally take out the highs at some stage. But I can't say it's not going to happen, right? This is not going to happen. I can't say that because it might, right? I'm never always right. As you know, I got a lot of hate a couple of weeks back when we were analyzing this range over here. Okay. And, but only regardless, a lot of people do like to, basically based on your last call, I will get a lot of hate based on the last call, but not all of the calls from over here, which were absolutely epic, right? And also in this range, this was beautiful, a range also. Anyway, let's analyze this area over here. there's not really much to change. I'm going to explain a few scenarios here on the local time frame. I think higher time frame, we don't need to discuss anything, guys. Higher time frame, we do know that this is a very strong level of resistance. We do have the point of control of this entire range. We have the golden pocket, value area low, trying to break above it. Golden pocket from the highs to the lows. We got a daily, we got a weekly, we got, this is so much resistance at the $96,000 area, right? We're going to give it an area, a zone, not an exact level. It's really a struggle, right? I don't think we need to go through higher time frames. People are, I think, a bit tired of the higher time frame. We need to discuss more, the local time frame, right? We're really trying to analyze every day the possible movements that could happen, right? And higher time frame, there's not much, right? You can go on many other channels, they're just going to say Bitcoin's bullish or we're hitting some resistance and we can pull back, right? But we're going to go, we go in detail, right? We go in detail on lower time frame, which you're not going to see many channels do. And if you do so, please let me know. I would like to know anybody that's actually focusing on lower time frame to see the possible projections, right? Which, I've looked at people that try and analyze the 5 minute, 1 minute for some possible projections, and there might be order blocks or SFP kind of traders out there, but trying to project the local time frame analysis is, I can tell you already, there's not going to be many out there. So let's go right away through let's just study a little bit just so you understand also this range. I'll go through the comment section right now, legends, okay? But let's understand a little bit this range over here, which was a, complex sideways corrective move. And just so you see how the price action develops from the start of the range, okay, which was here, right? You could arguably discuss that after this pump right there, this is where you start the range, okay, from this pivot. And just to give an example, right? Example, to back up a little bit the TA. And obviously the risks that there are also from rolling down, guys, because, there is that risk eventually. You need to understand that, yeah, maybe this is a 1, 2, 3 ABC, and you already finished your 5 wave here, and it's an ABC. I need to understand that there is that possible risk eventually that the high is in. But let's just focus a little bit on this range, just so you understand, a sideways WXY coming from an uptrend, right? If you are coming from an uptrend, we have that contracting move in a 5-wave structure finishing right over here. In this zone, what you did form is a flat, okay? Flat structure right over here, ABC flat, right? We'll put the lines here just so you can see it. Then we had a complex WXY here, zigzag move, double zigzag, right? Because you have the low here, your high here, your low here, and then another high right there. So with that, this did not claim this high, so it's still a lower high. You need to come to the conclusion it's a zigzag. You got 2 highs in this movement, and then you have a zigzag move down. And if you have a WXY, if you have a flat in your wave W, then you can form a zigzag in your wave Y. Very shallow, very short in time, but this was the end of the wave, right? And that's, that's what we're trying to build up here in this area, right? To see, is it possible for it to be a WXY? I know it might sound a little bit like Chinese and a bunch of rubbish, but it's a sideways correction. There was no signs of weakness here, and the probabilities were to hit the high at some stage, claiming the lows or not. As we were analyzing this a couple of weeks ago, right? Probabilities still to reach this high, as there's no signs of impulsive move to the downside here, right? Could we claim the low? Absolutely. There was still a reason to believe that the low could be claimed. Regardless, higher probability in claiming the highs still. So this is what we had here. Flat, WXY zigzag, double zigzag, and another zigzag right over here to finish your Y, and then finally get the pump. Not the same, but similar sideways momentum. And in this sideways momentum, for the moment, there is no strong signs of an impulsive move down from the highs. Let me just get this out of the way and we'll analyze the situation. Could there be a possibility in actually coming down to this low or even to this low right over here? And I have to say, yeah, eventually there is a possibility, but I would treat these levels as swing failure patterns. That is if this is not the high. If this were not to be the high and this was the high, as mentioned a few days ago, could this be a running flat? You know, there is a possible count for this to be a running flat. And of course, if this is a running flat in your wave W, then you have your triangle here that has broken down, right? Got the breakdown of the triangle. That would be your wave X. As we do have your wave X right over here, you know, the speculation is that you're in your final wave, right? Which would be your wave Y. So to count this, you know, this does not look impulsive to the downside. You know, if this were to be bearish, you would have to count, you know, multiple 1-2s. It's very, very hard right now. You did move up here to the 0.88 Fibonacci from this pivot, also the 0.88 Fibonacci from this pivot. So, you know, there's low probability still based on this price action that there is no big breakdown. There's no big movement to the downside with a 5-wave structure, okay? Very aggressive, first sign of weakness. We haven't got that yet. And the fact that we haven't got this yet is that we are still in the sideways correction coming from an uptrend, holding the range for the moment still, coming from an uptrend, sideways, corrective move. No big signs of weakness based on strong impulsive moves to the downside. So we still lean on the bullish side to claim the highs. So I want to know your opinion, legends, in the comment section. You know, are we going to dump down, right? This does look like it's the end, right? This is it. It's getting exhausted, and we are looking for that Bart Simpson pattern. Let me know right away in the comment section if you think that a dump is coming, right? That's it, guys. This was the pump. This was the rally. Okay, no reasons to be excited right now, and we are just about to roll over. Or, you know, this could be the low, or we're very close to the low, and we're going to claim $96,000, right? Maybe even higher levels. Let me know right away in the comment section. What do you think? Okay. Jasper, how are you doing? How are you doing? Let's go. Let's go. First, BTC about to go to 100K today. TM, come on. 100,000? Not sure if we'll go that high. The legend awaits. Joe, my man, much love. Nice song. Thank you. Aditya, always giving love and power. Yesterday, who else shorted, says Pratesh. Yeah, the probabilities yesterday and getting a dump out of this triangle was there. The breakdown here was definitely a possibility out of this triangle when we were analyzing A, B, C, D, E here, right? The breakdown, we bounced exactly at the point of control. Bounced exactly at the point of control of this range, right? So not sure if you wanted to short at the highs or on the breakdown. I'm not a huge fan of getting into the breakdown here of a trend. You know, want to try and get in at the highest level possible. Easy invalidation, which was that C point pivot. Okay, we did talk about the potential of breaking down, right? It's just like an intraday trading setup. And obviously, you know, if you're looking for that breakdown here from this pivot, you know, you want to take profit at your first level of support, which was right over here. Very, very, very aggressive intraday trading. So, you know, we are probably in this zone at the moment, right? Now the question is, you know, can we hold this region, right? Can we hold the region here based on yesterday's analysis? And we're going to focus on this local time frame, right? This local range from the last 24 hours to really see, does it look weak, right? We have massive volume just increasing right now throughout this drop as we were having the news, right? So it's a little bit of a news-driven drop, right? And now it's like, it doesn't look too great, you know. I think where the price is going to dump down, right? You might think. Obviously, you got that initial move down. Doesn't look too great. Are you feeling bullish or are you feeling bearish in this range, guys? Let me know. Bitcoin will hit the CME futures gap. Let's take a look at CME futures gap here that George is saying 96K liquidity zone. Let's go. Yeah, we are building up quite a lot of liquidity. You know, it might be even whales that are, you know, lots of liquidity at 96K, right? It doesn't mean that we need to go up there to claim that liquidity, but there is liquidity. You know, the analysis does project that, you know, possible new high can be formed right from this range. Didn't sweep too much liquidity on the dip, and now we can see how that huge amount of liquidity is building up above 96K. 96K region all the way up to 97. So we're building a lot of shorts right now. Liquidations above 96K, which is very interesting eventually to get that movement up at some point. So let's go right away and analyze here after going through the comment section. More, you know, let's clean the chart up, clean the chart. And we want to analyze these movements to the downside. These movements to the downside, how aggressive do they look? Okay, or are we still in very much corrective structure? Okay, we're going to go a little bit in detail like yesterday. For the moment, you know, if the yesterday's analysis was correct, this zone is the one that should be holding, right? We shouldn't be going much lower than this area, and the price should be seeing some proof of support and start seeing some strength in the next coming hours, right? However, I have included one analysis with this movement. If we are going to look at this as the high, the fact that we moved here, 3-wave move down, 3-wave move up, the possibility of counting this as a contracting move is there. It's not the most beautiful one, but it is a valid count. You know, if this were to be your wave Y in a running flat, and this is your wave X in that triangle, okay, finish of a wave, and now you have this movement. The thing is, if you form a running flat or a flat in your wave W, your wave Y can be a zigzag, and that is the situation here. You know, can it be a double zigzag where you have a zigzag, you have a corrective move, and then another zigzag down very aggressively to have a zigzag move down here if you do count your W in a flat? Because if your W is a flat, then a zigzag is possible. And, you know, I would give it a possible count starting the correction. You know, things do change. If you count the correction from this pivot, then you have another story. If you count the correction from this pivot, you have another story, right, that you can, you know, project. So if this is the high, you know, preferably this area holds. You know, this could be the low. If you start the correction from here, also based on what we mentioned yesterday, right? WXY over here. Ever so slightly a flat, just almost scratching the 0.9 Fibonacci. This could be the low. But if you count it from this pivot and you consider this a running flat, when you have a running flat in your W, your Y can be a zigzag. You already got a zigzag here. It would be shallow in time, but this is similar to this area. You formed a quick zigzag down, potentially to get to the value area low, right? And, you know, this is just the best example right over here. Yeah, coming to the value area low, you got your flat structure, you got your WXY zigzag here, and a very quick zigzag down, right? The moment of panic to the value area low, right? And, you know, if you are going to use the similarities of this, then we come down to the value area low. Value area low of the zone. Yeah, I mean, value area low of the zone. If you were to count this as your running flat, you got your triangle in your X wave. Here you have a double zigzag, and here you had a sharp zigzag down to the value area low. So here you got your zigzag in the last 24 hours. You know, there is a zigzag here. It's very shallow in time, but this one was very shallow in time as well. Down to the value area low, where it did find support, And for the moment, we are finding support, right? We did get down to the value area low, and now we're bouncing. So, very, very interesting area without a doubt, where you're not mirroring the exact scenario, because here you have a regular flat and here you have a running flat. Then you have a triangle in your X wave. Here you have a double zigzag. And then the Y would be the same, right? Which is just a bit of a sharp zigzag down. And that's what you had right over here. It's just looking at the similarities, guys, okay? Past performance doesn't need to be exactly the same, but just, the curiosity, right? When we look at the, the possibilities. What is interesting also, in a sideways corrective move, right? What are the target zones when we consider the Fibonacci extension? Because your Y wave has a target when you have your potential W, your X, and your Y. There is a Fibonacci extension target. Also here in your running flat, X, Y, there is also a possible target. And the most common target zones are in between the 0.618 Fibonacci extension and the 1.236 extension. And what is interesting about this first one that we mentioned yesterday, if we do consider this as zigzag, triangle, flat, you would have to count this as a flat, which is just about hitting the minimum flat target, 0.9, 0.88, right? Fibonacci. When we take a look at the extension here, from this pivot high to the pivot low to the pivot high of your E wave of your triangle, which is your X, your 0.618 is your kind of minimum target zone. That's right. We did hit the 7.8 Fibonacci of the extension, but this would already be valid as a minimum target, all the way up to the 1.236. Now, as you do want a flat here, and you don't want a zigzag, because if you have a zigzag in your W, you cannot have a zigzag, aggressive zigzag on your Y. So if this is the valid count, this should be the low. This should really be the low considering the flat. Could you form another low, local double bottom? Very, very possible, but this should be the low or very close to the low if we're considering this the scenario. If we do take into consideration this running flat over here, because we did count this as a running flat also a few days ago, right over there, very, very valid running flat here. This does not look impulsive. This does not look bearish. All of the movements down, you retrace all the way up here to the 0.88 Fibonacci, decreasing the probabilities for the big breakdown. So we have the triangle eventually that is crystal clear. There's no, you could not make this up. You have a triangle here, so that's the end of that wave. This is the end of this wave, right? Your X wave. So you got your W right over here, your X wave on the triangle, and now possible zigzag, very quick, very sharp, down, value area low, that's it, boom, start to see a sign of strength move up. Very, very possible scenario. But what are the target zones? What are the target zones? I mean, let's put here the WXY. That would be your W in a running flat, your X on the triangle at the very end of your E wave, and this possibly your Y wave. When you take a look at Fibonacci extension for this sideways WXY, as mentioned, your common target area to bottom out is the 0.618 Fibonacci extension to the 1.236. And when you get this pivot high, which is the start of your W, to the end of your W right over here, which is the running flat, to the end of your X wave, which is the triangle, right? Your E wave, X wave, it's this pivot right over here. And we do extend this, you literally hit the 1.236 Fibonacci, which is your common target zone as well, right? As the kind of limit zone. If we are considering all of this, that sideways WXY. So, you know, if you're counting the correction from this pivot, this sideways correction from this pivot, you have hit the 1236, right? Which is also one of the common targets for the WXY, which is interesting. That's literally where we bounced with the value area low. So, yeah, it's very interesting. If that were to be the case, it would make sense that this zigzag has finished. It would make sense that this zigzag has finished right over here. And the recovery looks very, very interesting from here. So if we do take a look at the local structure right now, which is very important to see, is this movement down bearish? Is it aggressive since the highs of yesterday inside of this triangle, right? That is the question, right? You know, when you get the price action, you get more information, right? Every time you get more information. And, you know, with this information, do we see a bearish impulse? And for the moment, it's looking quite okay. It's looking quite okay from this movement over here. I have to say, this does not look terribly bearish. And you may ask me why. Well, we'll get to that right now, right? Because we want to explain the scenarios, right? For all of those people that are interested and realizing, you know, why it does not look too bearish, this movement to the downside. And that's really going to the local time frame. Yeah, let's just focus on the lower time frame right now with this new information that we got. Yeah, let's go right really lower time frame, because I want to really take a look at this movement to the downside, which looks quite interesting. When we do see the start of the drop from today, what is interesting about this movement is that I see 1, 2, 3. I see 3 waves to the downside here. Okay, and not a 5-wave move down. If this would have been a 5-wave move down, then that would be a total different thing. But it's been very 3-wavy, and this bounce over here has overlapped the pivot low. If this, you're considering a 1, 2, 3, 4, you're overlapping this pivot, which increases the probability that this is not an impulsive move down. So that is already a good sign from this bounce that we had after this major drop. You know, a bit of a V-shaped bounce overlapping all of these pivot lows. So you'd have to consider this as your first initial wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, right? And if you get this such a big bounce, this is a, you know, an initial sign of strength. If you get all the way up to, you know, overlap this pivot low. And the golden pocket from the pivot high here to the pivot low, if you're considering a wave 4 to roll over aggressively to test the lows here, then, you know, it's losing probability, right? It's losing probability. This is a sign of strength. This V-shaped move up is a sign of strength when you overlap all of these pivots. So, you know, the probabilities here and actually finding a higher low is pretty good. It's pretty damn good. Okay, so, you know, that's just looking at the local time frame based on this movement down, which looks quite okay for the recovery. Okay, you know, just keeping it in simple terms, it looks quite good. Now, what would be another scenario? Okay, yeah, I'll go through the comment section. Could there be the danger of forming a double zigzag? I mean, I would say that this could be the low, but there is also the chance of forming a zigzag down. You form a correction to the upside, and then you form an aggressive zigzag down again, forming a double zigzag WXY here. Just if we were to consider that the correction starts from this pivot and not from this pivot. If we had the correction from this pivot, this could be the low. if the correction starts from this pivot, I understand based on the timing, because this flat is incredibly long in time. Then you have the triangle, which is okay in time, bit shorter, but this zigzag is very shallow in time. Understanding that a double zigzag, you know, could be an option, which is literally a zigzag down, which what we had. Then you get a movement up, and then you have another aggressive zigzag down, which would be a WXY double zigzag, which you can have here in your wave Y when you have a flat in your wave W. And I mean, and this is like really going on the different possibilities. So, you know, I would really consider the lows here as a swing failure pattern level, you know, just in case you do get that bounce and then you aggressively move down, you know, and this could be the low, right? Just because you formed a double zigzag down. It's just realizing that it could happen, right? So I would be very interested in a swing failure pattern, literally from these lows. If you don't swing failure pattern, then eventually I would be looking for these lows to be hit, which automatically converts this into a no trading, well, not a long position, right? I need to get back above the low to get into that long. If you break down, then I'm not interested in being in the long, right? Could you SFP from this level? Absolutely. You know, this would be another interesting long position to sweep up these lows. But yeah, breaking the levels, not interested in a long eventually if you do not get back above the level, right? If you don't get back above the level. And maybe, you know, maybe if you're holding a short from here of yesterday based on the triangle, maybe you're holding some of that short, you know, you do think that this is the high. The risk of this being the high, you know, is there, right? The risk of this being the high, I explained why I don't like this level to be the high. And that all of this does still look very corrective, but you know, you can say that this could have been the high. You can say it after forming this sideways momentum and breaking out here. You can say that, you know, you have a wave 1, wave 2 consolidation, big explosive wave 3 consolidation, zigzag wave 4. Which we did talk about a few days ago, right? Very corrective. We're looking for the highs. You know, this could be the moment that we actually come up after forming this zigzag move. It looked very corrective and choppy, lots of overlap. Still looking for a high. But the fact that we moved up in a 3-wave structure, this counts better as a 3-wave structure. I'm considering this still part of a correction, you know, to possibly, you know, to claim those highs again, as mentioned on the previous video. So, but the risk is there. I just don't like it based on my analysis. I don't like this to be the high. But because of the main reason being a 3-wave structure. And the fact that we're coming up and retracing to the 0.88 gives me even more reasons that this is probably not the high. This is probably not the high. And, you know, we were still just forming sideways uptrend. And at some point, we're going to claim those highs, right? So anyway, let's go. Hopefully you enjoyed that explanation, guys. Just really going into the you know, technical analysis purely based on Elliott wave theory, which lots of people don't like, but it's very, very effective to come up with the probabilities. At the end of the day, you can just use order blocks, swing failure patterns, right, or pointer controls, right? Which we you know, we did get a bounce yesterday from this pointer control, so why not long here? Right, and instead of, you know, counting the waves. But what I enjoy is the probability of the moves, right? And this is what's fascinating when you really, you know, go deep into Elliott wave theory, especially on the lower time frame, because yesterday, you know, we did talk about the potential of breaking down, getting a bounce, and getting back down here again, and then this might be the low. This is a projection of a possible movement that could happen. And, you know, this is the interesting thing is we got the dump because of the news, right? That's what, well, when you do the TA, you're actually projecting the possible movements that could happen. I mean, this high was not taken, but almost. We did get the bounce from point of control. We did sweep up the lows, value area low. We're getting the bounce at the moment. let's see, right? Let's see. Based on counting this high as the start of the correction, this could be the low. This could be the low. If you count this sideways corrective move from this pivot, it could be the low. Things change ever so slightly when you start it, you know, when you count it from this pivot, even though you have hit a target zone of your WXY, which is the 1236. But you just need to realize about, you know, the possibility of a double zigzag here in your wave Y, because if you form a flat in your W, which is a running flat, not the best looking one, but there's a valid count here, and that your Y can be a zigzag, which has been a zigzag for the moment after the triangle. You formed a triangle, you formed a zigzag. I mean, this could be it. But you need to understand that a double zigzag is still, you know, possible. You know, it's kind of the last move that would be possible before you claim the highs. And that's if you do, you know, swing failure pattern. That's if you don't get a solid breakdown, because then if we were to get a solid breakdown, I would have to give lots of explanations on the next stream, right? But it doesn't look, you know, there's no strong impulsive move to the downside that I can count, you know, from this high, you know, not even from this high, right? There's just, you know, it makes more sense that you're just still in a sideways corrective scenario. Let's go through the comment section, legends. It can go even lower. That is the reason marked falls also. Avi Yoshi, how are you doing? Much love to you. It can go even lower. It can go even lower. I mean, what would be very nice is to actually sweep up this low, right? We do love swing failure patterns, you know, and this low hasn't been hit. Sometimes you just front run the levels also. So, you know, swing failure pattern from this level would be interesting. If it were to break down from this level, then eventually you are looking at this low right over here for the swing failure pattern. And this zone is very important. This is a solid, strong support level where you have an order block right over here at $91,000, right? You got that nice consolidation order block on slightly higher time frames where you also have a naked point of control there. And, you know, that's just, you don't want to lose this zone, this level. Because if you lose that level, eventually you are going to get a pretty nasty drop all the way down to the lows of the start of the pump, right? So this would definitely be a no long trading zone, because you have the inefficiency, right? You either hold this level. If you don't hold it, you don't want to be in any long trades here. Because, you know, the fast moves up, you get the deal. There are fast movements down once you cross, right, an order block after a major pump, which makes it risky, you know, to get into the long position. Let's go through the comment section and say hello to the beautiful community. It can go even lower, says Hamid. Absolutely. Do you ever check the value area high, value area low, and point of control on other charts like the index or Coinbase spot? Sometimes on Coinbase or Binance, just to see the difference. If it is very different, then I would consider it, especially BTC US dollar tether on Binance, which is one of the highest you know, exchanges with high volume, right? I do sometimes consider it. Okay. WinHub Solutions, Andy, huge thanks for your daily analysis. You calm explanations, consistent updates really help us stay focused in this crazy market. Appreciate your time and effort. Keep up the awesome work. My man, that's such a great comment. Thank you very much. You made my day with that comment. Much love to you, my man. Hope you're doing well, you and your loved ones. And, you know, stay focused and stay calm on this crazy market. I just bought. Wrong decision. Fernando, did you buy on spot? Did you leverage? Did you leverage trade? It all depends, you know. For the moment, like I said, it does look. Most would say that it does look pretty bad, right? This is a dead cat bounce, and we're gonna roll down, right? It's just. But when I'm taking a look at the overall range and understand where we at, it looks pretty okay. It looks pretty okay. The only thing that I do see a little bit of risk is that we form a double zigzag, which is a zigzag here, and then you form your correction in your wave X, right? It could have been this, and then you form another zigzag down, and you literally form a double zigzag here before you get the leg up. That's the only risk when I consider the sideways correction from this pivot, which is a flat, running flat triangle, risk of double zigzag. You know, it is there. So when we take a look at the higher time frame, what I don't like is, as mentioned a few days ago also with the analysis, is that we formed a for the moment, it is still looked at as a three-wave structure. And when you compare looking at the bars pattern from this price action that we had back in February, you know, it doesn't look too great. It's when you stretch this chart, for the moment, it's a three-wave move to the upside. Hang on a second. Right, and you stretch this out. You know, for the moment, it's a three-wave structure. And obviously, you know, when you have a three-wave move up, coming into massive resistance, value area low, point of control of the range of 2024-25, it's like, oh man, you know, we know what happened when we formed a three-wave structure here. We moved up very aggressively. I mean, this was pumped based on an X tweet from Donald Trump, and we came straight back down. And of course, this was not a 4-5, right? We claimed the lows. This is bearish. If you claim the zone, it's bearish. And obviously it was. You claimed the lows again. So it is important for the bulls to actually maintain this area and create one more high. One aggressive high would be nice to count this as a 5-wave impulsive move to the upside. Eventually a correction is going to happen at some point, but this would be looking very, very strong as a full reversal. And then we can talk about all-time highs and stuff like that after the pullback, right? After getting that kind of pullback at some point. But yeah, having a three-wave structure here is very disturbing, coming all the way up to this resistance. It is very, very disturbing without a doubt. You know, and the best example is this, you know, price action that we had in February. It's a three-wave structure. You move down very aggressively. It no longer was a bullish move. And, you know, when it's just the same movement, you just stretch it out. This was on the lower time frame. It's a three-wave move. And the problem really comes when the price action from this, if it were to come down, and I would still consider it a three-wave structure if we just claim the highs and we reject. I would count this fifth wave inside of this wave potentially still. If it's a shallow move up, if it's a nice big move to 98, 99K, right? Then I would say this does look very, very bullish. The correction has a high chance to be a higher low, and we're heading up to all-time highs in the next coming months, right? But we still need a lot of information. We need, you know, this correction to finish and create a pretty significant high to believe on the bullishness on the higher time frame. Because if we do not get that extra wave to the upside and we start correcting down pretty aggressively, coming down to this area, it's not going to be looking good. You know, it's not going to be looking too great. And this increases the chances to actually claim the lows again, because this will no longer look bullish. You know, this is a three-wave move up. It will not look bullish. And you're facing some big problems right now here at the value area low, point of control, right, of 2024-25 price action. And, you know, it can be very bull trappy. And yeah, this would be a zone where I would be very, very bearish. You know, the bounce will be, I would be interested in looking for shorts on the bounce. If the price were to come down here, the bounce, in my opinion, could be a weak bounce, could because this movement to the upside will no longer be looked at as a good sign of strength, a good movement up. And the best example is this price action that we had in February, right? Which is this bars pattern. This is this movement right there. Okay, which is it's a three-wave move. It's a three-wave move for the moment, but on the higher time frame. So it doesn't affect the lower time frame, guys. As mentioned, you know that there's still this does look corrective, and there's still a high chance eventually to claim those highs. So yeah, anyway, let's go through the comment section, say hello to the beautiful community. Of course, remember that you also, guys, have an awesome bonus on weeks, guys. You get 20% deposit bonus up to $2,000 maximum. So if you deposit $10,000, you wait 3 days on your futures account, you'll be getting an airdrop of $2,000 that you can use. It increases your capital, and you also get 25% fee reduction when you sign up with the second link down below, legends. Okay, so take advantage on weeks. You just need an email and a password to sign up on weeks, legends. Let's go. It's an Adam and Eve with Bart. Adam and Eve, inverted Adam and Eve, or an Adam and Eve double bottom or double top. Inverted Adam and Eve would be the I don't see an Adam and Eve here. Double bottom, I have to say. Not sure about the Adam and Eve. Yeah, I mean, this, I assume you would say this, a double top scenario, Adam and Eve right there. You got the neckline breakdown. Bart Simpson pattern, very well known pattern on Bitcoin. This was actually invented on the Bitcoin chart. Bart Simpson pattern, guys. Who knows about the Bart Simpson pattern? If you have been long enough in crypto, you know that the Bart Simpson pattern, that supposedly was the eye, but Bart Simpson pattern is basically a breakdown, right? After forming the head. And you get that big dump to the downside. There's many Bart Simpson patterns. I fear the Bart Simpson pattern when I understand that, you know, this could have been a three-wave structure to the upside, ABC. You know, I do fear the three-wave structure. I do fear that there is a valid count of a finished 5-wave impulse on your C wave. There is a valid count. However, I don't like the 5th wave. The 5th wave was very three-wavy. Very, very three-wavy. And the range here and the 0.88 touches, which gives you the high chance of, the higher probability that you're not starting a bearish move to the downside here just yet. I couldn't be, this is the risk about talking about lower time frame and being confident of and talking about higher probability scenarios, right? Because I'm going to get bashed if something doesn't play out, right? You get bashed. But I like to do that. I like to be confident, on the analysis as many times, right? You want to be a bit confident on the analysis, but I understand the risk here. I understand the risk that there is. So just need to accept that. Bart Simpson patterns. Where can we find one? Where can we find a Bart Simpson pattern? We got one right over here. Not the most beautiful Bart Simpson, but Bart Simpson pattern. There he is. There's Bart Simpson right there. Where's there another Bart Simpson pattern? You got one right over here ever so slightly. Bart Simpson pattern, double top. There's another one right there. Another one right over here on the lower time frame. Bart Simpson, there he is again. Anyway, there's many of them. This is a confirmed Bitcoin pattern. It was created with Bitcoin. Let's go through the comment section. Not much more here to discuss on the local time frame legends. Let's go right away through the comment section, see what the people are saying. Martin, much love to you. Andy, thanks. Andy, you are the best. I'm not the best. I'm very far away from being it, but I try and bring, you know, analysis that makes sense. Analysis that does make sense. It's not always going to be right. We can talk about the probability sides, right? It's much better saying that we know that Bitcoin's going to go to all-time high. We know it's going to go to 500,000 in the future, right? This is why I hold Bitcoin as an investor long-term, right? Despite the local volatility, it's important. I think it's a great asset that will go to much higher levels in the future. Local volatility, we look for intraday setups, you know, the higher probability movements. We try and be right most of the times, but that's impossible, right? You can't be always right. All-time high has Bart Simpson, says Ronia. Yes. Thanks, Andy. You are the best. Phantom, thank you very much for that kind comment. Much love to you. Our long from 93K is going strong. Phantom, my man. Andy's the best. Not sure where that long is lying from. But I did get into a couple of longs throughout this range. Just some intraday setup. There's the swing failure pattern here from a few days ago. Talking about this, I think I might have it on a folder here. Yeah, this corrective move. Also, I was out of this trade as soon as we got to this high over here. It's the target, right? And we really analyzed this a few days ago. Very interesting movement. This was just a few days ago, and we understood how all of this price action was incredibly corrective, right? There's not there's no reason here to believe that we are going to go to lower levels after finishing this structure, right? This was on a stream on last Thursday, right? Last Thursday we streamed this you know, this event talking about high probability here of actually moving up, and this could be the low, or you either continue sideways and claim the high, or you actually recover with a nice movement and claim the high here. So, yeah. Still looks very rangy. Of course, we have the Bart Simpson fear. Someone said about the Adam and Eve. It does look very Adam and Eve-y, right? Inverted Adam and Eve. We got the spike up here, roll over. You know, there is without a doubt a risk here on the higher time frame as we hit the resistance, guys. You know, it's not a major zone to be extremely bullish, right? On the higher time frame, we've had a massive pump last week, right, or 2 weeks ago. We gained big momentum. You need to understand the risks that there are for a pullback, and I do see a pullback happening eventually. But I'm, you know, locally looking at a possible one more high, right? In my opinion, as mentioned on the previous streams, it would be an unlikely scenario to get a big breakout here. It just wouldn't make sense based on the waves, based on the steam of the waves here. You know, I've never seen on any chart, you know, something like this with these shallow pullbacks. So as I've never seen it, I think it's an unlikely scenario to happen, right? So what I am looking at eventually is, you know, as we attempt to hit these highs where we have all of this resistance, point of control, we have a daily level, we have a weekly level, weekly close and open at this zone, golden pocket, you know, I am looking for a reversal. I am looking for the price to lose momentum, you know, in this region which we are basically at the moment. So, you know, you need to understand the risks here of a pullback. You know, a pullback is without a doubt what we expect on the higher time frame at some point, regardless if we claim the highs or not, which is, you know, for me, still a high chance that we do claim the highs one more time, but the risk of a pullback here eventually is there, right? You know, I am really looking at the high chance of forming a pullback. So this is, you know, people that say that we're going to 100K, you know, it's an unlikely move above 100K. It's an unlikely move that we do have without some, you know, larger type of corrective move, regardless taking out the high or not. So you know we need you need to understand that on the higher time frame, that after this consolidation to get a big breakout is very unlikely. There's no chart that I've seen with these shallow pullbacks to the 236 Fibonacci and then form a massive third wave. It would be a one in a lifetime situation here, which can happen, right? You can never say never. Anyway, just a little bit of a relaxed stream here, guys. I'm in Dubai. I've been to Token 2049. I've seen some very interesting people there, and there are some pretty nice side events that I'm going to go. Now, thoughts on ADA. We can take a look at a few. We are clearly losing momentum. Bulls push up the price hardly at longer time, but bears push the price down in a shorter time with large candles. It tells me it is time for the retracement, says Reza. Very true, my man. It is a zone where it's time for a retracement. There's no doubt about it. Okay. Looking at these in intraday movements, as mentioned, there is still a high chance, in my personal opinion, in my analysis that I share with you here, that we do possibly claim the highs again, but it is time for a pullback based on this movement to the upside, coming into massive level, higher resistance, right? High resistance on the higher time frame, and a massive breakout from this area to the upside without a pullback is an unlikely move, right? It's an unlikely move that we get above $100,000. And, we are facing big problems here in this area, right? Being the valley area low, point of control, right? Almost hitting golden pocket from the movement down. And you have the best example on the previous cycle, right? It's, all of this information comes from the, the history of different movements on the chart. And I know you might believe, history does not need to repeat itself, right? But it does, rhyme many, many times. The chart moves in certain waves, in certain movements. And a distribution is a distribution. An accumulation is an accumulation, right? And, you got your distribution event, the big leg down. You got an accumulation event, the big leg to the upside. And the same danger that there is now, we had the same danger on the previous cycle. You're coming to the base of the distribution, hitting the golden pocket after the pump of the accumulation. So there's, without a doubt, there's no doubt that we are running into some big resistance right now on the higher time frame. But also, when you zoom in on this price action, it does look like that it's losing momentum again, right? It does look like that you're losing momentum here. Slightly, higher lows still, higher highs. You stretch your legs one more time before the dump, right? That's what I would like to see. Technical analysis is not perfect, but it would be nice to claim the highs one more time. I'm very interested in short trades, I have to say. Very, very interested in short trades. So as you're getting that range momentum here, it's like, oh, this is going to roll down, right? It looks very, very exhausted. You get one more push up, right? So, this also looks exhausted at this zone. We ain't gonna do the Elliot wave count on this, but just so you get the higher time frame perspective, right? Very similar price action from the previous cycle. Distribution, big move down, bang, 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 accumulation, very strong rallies here, and then you come to the base of the distribution event, right? Which is where you're finding the problems, and you get, a decent pullback. Now, the question is, on that pullback, there was 5 waves here. You can count 5 waves on this movement up. And most clearly, you can count 3 waves down. So the problem is, if we were to get that pullback after the 3-wave move to the upside, it is, you know, it's not going to be looking too great, guys. You know, we can't, if we're looking at the previous cycle, we're kind of expecting a higher low here, right? But if we finish and we start correcting down very aggressively to the base that we formed, right? I'll show you right now. It's not going to be looking too great. I would say instead of doing this, we could be, you know, maybe going more sideways or maybe even testing the lows, which a lot of bulls don't want to hear about that. But you need to give it a possibility if you finish this movement up in a 3-wave structure. So yeah, it would be nice to get one more high at least to be confident that you formed an impulsive move, right? So get a consolidation, get a push up, and then get the pullback. One more leg up will completely change the game for the bulls here. For this to be a complete reversal, and then the pullback will be looking interesting to then head up to all-time highs. But if it were to pull back down after this consolidation very aggressively, it's not going to be looking the same as this. And we might be going either sideways for a longer time or even rolling down. So we'll get that information once you know, once the price action develops. You know, for the moment on the lower time frame, despite hitting the local lows again or not, you know, the probabilities looking at the range still lean that another high is highly likely. Okay, even though we chop down to the lows, you know, there is a good chance that the lows do maintain our support, as the value area low maintained our support as well, right, throughout this drop. We did drop down to below 83, yeah, just about $83,000. So you know, this is this kind of pump also that we had here. What is interesting to analyze about this is, you know, when you have this momentum to the upside and you form this range, it does look it's exhausted after this pump and you want to see a reversal, right? This is getting exhausted. You expect a movement down, right? If you really see this price action, right? It's kind of exhaustive price action. But when you analyze the waves, you understand that this is a corrective structure. But my main question here was, will we hit the lows before we hit the highs? But you know, the overall analysis in this range was there's high probability in claiming the highs. Regardless if this is the low or not, you know, there's a high probability that you do get a movement up. Just understanding that this is corrective. It looks corrective. So, you know, bounce out the value area low from this range. Happy days. Sideways correction, claim the highs with a, you know, nice little breakout. You know, the question is right now, you know, will this value area low hold? For the moment it is, right? It's looking choppy. We've got a major dip down. You know, can we reclaim the lows, form a swing failure pattern or not? You know, this is the most important thing, right? You need to reclaim those pivot lows. If you do test them, you need to reclaim and be defensive. Also with this low right over here, if you test this low, you want to see a reclaim of the low. And understand the risks of the levels, right? You know, this is a major level, order block. You got a naked point of control. If you lose this order block, you got the inefficiency. So this is not a zone to play around with longs or add to long positions. You know, you just don't know how aggressive the movement can be after you lose this order block. This is a zone to get an aggressive dump if you lose this level. So it's like level to level here, guys. If you don't hold this, you're not interested in any long position. If you don't hold this pivot low with the order block, you're not interested in getting into a long here. You know, it's just, this could really lose the levels. You want to reclaim of the low and have a low for a stop loss, right? Anyway, let's go right away through the comment section. Still in the range, guys. Still in the range. Very boring. We did get a dip today. Bit of a dip from the highs of the range to the lows of the range, but we're still very much range formation here. Very, very boring price action. I would expect a possible big move very, very soon. Looking at the price of Bitcoin. Legends, what's up, brother? We do have, oh my goodness, 𝗕𝗶𝘆𝗽 and 𝗵𝗫, both of them here. The both of the legends, guys, are here in the comment section. Make sure to go and follow up on 𝗕𝗏𝘆𝗽 and on 𝗵𝗐, guys. They got awesome content every single day. Okay, make sure to go and check them out. I'm just getting the YouTube channel here from Crypto by 𝗵𝗐, guys. Crypto by 𝗵𝗐 YouTube channel. Make sure to go and check him out. Awesome content every single day. Actually put your YouTube channel right away in the comment section. Let's go. And you also have 𝗕𝗏𝘆𝗽 here. We also have 𝗕𝗶𝘆𝗽𝗫, my man. How are you doing? We got 𝗕𝗏𝘆𝗽 here also, bringing power and love. 𝗕𝗏𝘆𝗽, are you bullish? Are you bearish? Do you see the price action rolling over? If you don't know who 𝗕𝗏𝘆𝗽 is, guys, absolute legend as well. I'm going to just put his YouTube channel here in the comment section. Shout out to the brothers here, giving love. Much love to you guys. Un abrazo, 𝗕𝗶𝘆𝘃. Got my Spanish mate here, moderator, giving love and support. The 1 hour candles for the past week are copying a move from 2020 that started the run to 64K almost perfectly. But that time we were also into all-time high levels, and this time we are going up into the major point of control. Very interesting. The 1 hourly candles in the past week are copying a move in 2020 from 2020 that started the run to 64K. Very, very interesting. Let's take a look. From 2020, my goodness. Yeah, we probably don't have that on the Bybit chart. From 2020, I'm not sure. Are we going to take a look at that or not? I need a little bit of more data on that. You can't just say 2020 copying 1 hourly candles from price action of 2020. We cannot do that. I need more information. Pump, pump, pump. Let's go, rocket. Andy, what about the altcoin season? When we take a look at the Bitcoin dominance, it is still flying. You know, Bitcoin dominance is not stopping, unfortunately. We got new highs today. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, we're not following the 4-year cycle on the altcoins. You know, March, April was the moment that we wanted to start seeing some big momentum down, and it's reversing. So completely different on altcoins. You know, the good altcoin projects eventually will hold on. You know, in my opinion, Chainlink is going to hold on strong. You know, Chainlink will be bullish long term, in my opinion, based on my research. I do believe in the project, and you know, I bought at very good levels. I told everybody that I'm not buying Chainlink with any of this nonsense. You know, all the Chainlink that I have has been bought already. Chainlink that we have is being bought at low levels. We want to buy low and sell high. I have a problem. I bought low and I didn't sell high. I'm still holding. So there's a problem with that, with my Chainlink bags. So I guess worst case scenario is coming back down to the lows here, you know, in the next coming months. It would be the worst case scenario. You just have to hold on, right? I don't think that would be the case, but it doesn't matter, right? If you can minimize your losses, you know, the problem is from the people that come into crypto. And, you know, I know there's big influencers out there that really just scream altcoins, buy this, buy that, 2025 altcoins, get rich. And especially for the newcomers. And the newcomers, the audience goes up eventually because you do see it through X, you do see it through the news. Altcoins are pumping, and it pumps, and you get massive amount of audience, new people coming into crypto. And eventually you get all of these people following the 4-year cycle theory, including myself. But there's no way in a million years I'm going to tell you buy Chainlink up here, guys. I said, guys, your chances of you know, the chances were here. If you are a long-term follower of the channel, you know that I never, even though it's the best altcoin season that's going to happen in 2025, you're not buying at the right moment. And it's quite sad, actually, because when things pump is when the audience increases, right? You get more audience when things are pumping and things are going well. And that's the moment where you already missed out in buying cheap. So I feel bad because a lot of people say it doesn't matter where you buy, we're going to go to much higher levels, right? And lots of people have left. The people that joined in November, December, when views are going crazy, all of these higher, all of these, big influence channels, we're just saying buy whatever you want, right? Altcoin season, buy this, buy that. And all of those newcomers that came throughout November and December, and that have been buying, then most of their altcoins are down big time, right? 40, 50, even 60% if they bought late into the pump, right? I'm still up a 2x on average from, my massive accumulation area, which was months in 2022, 2023. A lot of time you had so much time here to buy and buy and buy and buy. And eventually that is up. So, I feel kind of sorry. This is the moment that, I would say accumulating altcoins is not a bad idea. Some of these altcoins are not a bad idea to start DCAing, right? Don't be in a rush to go all in, but lots of altcoins are down a lot, except for XRP, of course. ADA, somebody was asking about ADA. I think ADA will manage to go up to all-time highs at some point eventually. Now ADA is pulling back quite nicely. Selling pressure is getting a little bit exhausted, not too much. A bit of sideways momentum would be ideal. Same as here, you want a bit of sideways momentum. Get a bit of sideways momentum. That will be a good moment to buy in. If you get sideways momentum after a drop, after a major pump and dump, it's the moment that you want to consider buying, right? An accumulation, possible accumulations area, right? Pump, dump, sideways momentum. That's when you want to be interested in buying, and not when it pumps and you get the views going up. Hey, what should I buy now? Is this going to go higher? It's like, no, you lost your chance, right? It's risky to buy on the pump. It's a pretty simple term, right? It's actually quite simple to understand where you need to buy when we're talking about spot buys, right? Long term. It's very, very simple. Very, very easy, but it's people feel missed out, right? I'm missing out. I am missing out on the move, and I want to join the move to the upside. But the areas to buy are very, very simple. They're very easy. Very, very easy areas where you understand where you need to buy, where everything looks dead and nobody believes in any of this crap, right? Well, that's where you need to buy. Let's go through the comment section anyway. ICP, CBN, much love to you. ICP, I think ICP is a good project. ICP is one of them that are actually I'm holding out a loss. Okay. I have unrealized losses on ICP. My average entry zone was $9-10. I'm down 50% on this one. This was a bad decision. Well, wouldn't say a bad decision, because I really liked the accumulation zone. Recovery for this one does look pretty good at some point. This is very good DCAing zone for ICP in my opinion. Just chill. It's probably going to take months to recover, and it might ever so slightly test the lows a few more times, but it's without a doubt a zone where you have time to buy before any of these candles happen at some point, right, in the near future. Yeah. So I bought ICP. It was not a bad zone on the chart. It was not a bad zone. This was in the profits, but you have the expectations here of the price actually breaking out, forming a higher low, and continue to the upside. And ICP is one of them that I'm holding at unrealized losses from this consolidation. The reading was right, but we just did not get the altcoin season that we were expecting, right? For the moment, not yet. It might happen in the next coming months. Everything points out that it does still look good, even though lots of them look dead. This is just a larger correction before we bottom out. Believe it or not, right? It will recover at some point. Legends, Thank you very much for joining the stream. Chill, guys. Much love to everybody. Remember that you got that insane bonus on weeks, guys. You do get 20% deposit bonus, 25% fee reduction to get this deposit. It's a maximum of $2,000, okay? If you deposit $10,000, you transfer to your futures account. In 3 days, you're getting an airdrop. So you get an increase of your capital of 20%, so you can use to trade and eventually withdraw the profits that you make from that extra capital, right? That extra bonus. You also got 25% fee reduction on your trades as you sign up with the second link down below, legends, all right? Another way to support the channel, another way to get into a platform that just requires an email and a password. You only need an email and password and you can trade, I think, anywhere in the world, which is pretty awesome. Legends, thank you very much for joining. I am out of here. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.